Hi, everybody. I see we still have a few people logging in. So I'll talk a little bit about housekeeping before we jump in. First, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I know it's crazy. I know everybody's schedules are crazy. We've got crazy things going on in the world right now. But I am really excited about the information that we can share. And I'm hoping that this will be really interactive for people. So I'm going to ask as I'm going through and answering questions and giving advice and sharing a ton of stuff that I researched and found. I'm going to ask if anybody has any specific questions. I actually already had a question emailed into me. Thank you, Esther. I saw that you're on, so I want to get other people's opinions on some of these things because I think the best thing that we can do when things are a little topsy-turvy in the world and with COVID and the CPAP recall and whatnot is maybe to share things that are working for others. There's no shortage of patients that need our help in sleep. And the customers that I get an opportunity to work with, I know how impactful their teams feel, that they're making such a difference in the world. So I don't think that there's any reason that we can't all share our ideas together and dive in. So I'm gonna ask for people as we're covering topics to share some of your thoughts if you've got any, or if I cover something and it's something that you've tried, if you can type that in, I'd love to hear it because then we can share with other people. So with that, because we did have over 100 people register for today, the lines are muted. But if you look in your GoToWebinar control panel, there's a spot for questions. You can type in questions or comments there. It's really easier for me to manage all chat in that questions area. So type your questions in there. And then I will try to watch them as we go along. If not, hopefully there will be some time at the end for me to cover anything else that comes up. All right, so what's keeping you up at night? If you are here, it's probably because one of the things that we listed as a topic that we're discussing today, the decreasing test volume, managing and retaining staff, or changing reimbursements is something that you thought it might be useful to have a brainstorm about or get some additional help with. We got these topics from the AAST 2021 Workforce Survey Report. I want to be clear, this is just one area of that report. There's tons of really useful data there, and there were very many, the majority of people that said, oh, I'm not really worried about much. We think sleep is going to do great things and we're going to grow. But the group of people that said that there is some concern about things, this is how that specific group voted on the things that are getting them worried. So when we were looking at this, we started to realize that we might have some good information and some good experience on addressing the three highest items on this list, or the things that people most voted for, which were a decline in testing, staffing challenges, and decline in financial outlook or reimbursements. So I do want to mention why I'm hosting this and a little bit of my credentials. And as we do that, I want to first kick off a poll for you guys because I did have my first management role at 26. I will tell you that is over, well, about 25 years ago. So I thought it would be fun for everybody to take a guess at what my first management job was. So take your guess. I was 26. That'll help. All right, go quick, because I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. Good job, we're already at 50%. Just thought this would be fun. All right, 5, 4, 3, I'm gonna close it. Good job, guys. All right, so here's what everybody voted. Clothing retail. It was actually kind of trucking. I sold ice cream, Edie's ice cream, to grocery stores, and I had been in a sales role. I had started from the bottom up there, and then I actually took over a new territory in the ice cream world. So I had about 10 people that I managed, 6 truck drivers and 5 merchandisers, or 4 merchandisers that went into the store. It was a really interesting experience for me at 26. I was quite a bit younger than everybody that I managed. I even managed 2 people that had retired and come back to work part-time. I even had to fire somebody for stealing cigarettes out of the back room at a grocery store. So it was a really interesting foray into management. And since then, I've managed well over 50 people. I've also been in charge of growth teams for over 15 years, which encompasses both the sales and marketing. I feel very strongly about keeping those in one area. And then if you can see, I didn't share my current position, the revenue numbers, but I did want to show you the most recent job that I had prior to coming to Enzo Data. The growth that we had there. I was the first salesperson, so I started as sales and marketing and as a team of one, and then we grew to where by the time that the company had been sold, I had about 15 people under me. So we had tremendous revenue growth, and then ironically there as well, we, if you would believe it, built, launched, and I helped sell as well as manage a revenue cycle management team. So when I looked at these three things that are keeping people up at night, I realized I may not be a master of all things, but I'm kind of a jack of all trades, and I feel like I've got some really good information to share on these topics. For those of you that are joining late, I also invite all of you to join me in sharing these. The other thing that I wanted to put on here as we talk about staffing is a lot of the ideas. I've had a lot of experience with things that have worked really well and things that have failed. I'm very proud of the things that I've actually failed on because I'm always looking to try new things. But recently at my company currently, Enzo Data, we were actually in 2021 voted for worst workplaces. And I've got some examples of things that we've put in place that I think helped impact that as well. All right, so as we go through this, there is something that I want you guys to know. This is not going to be a presentation on our products. However, I do work for Enzo Data, and we have 3 products, Enzo Sleep, Enzo Viewer, and Enzo TST. And I thought, to be fair, because I feel very, very passionately about challenging the way things are done and talking, to other leadership teams. I've given presentations on all sorts of topics on this, but I also do represent Enzo Data, and sometimes I might have some ideas on how my current role could make a difference in the topics that we're talking about. So what I decided to do is I'm going to talk to you very, very strictly in a consultative role. Most of the time, I only have 3 slides on Enzo Data. But when I'm going to talk in my sales role, I'll put my Enzo Data hat on because we all wear lots of hats. So I'm going to tell you the 3 products we have. Enzo Sleep is scoring software. It's AI scoring software. It scores PSGs and HSATs, and then a technician, an RPSGT, or a physician could log in and review it. Enzo Viewer is an FDA cleared web-based software that allows for study review, editing and reporting of studies. So you can have different devices, it's cloud-based, all of your studies end up in the viewer where you can edit them and generate reports. And then Enzo TST is basically providing total sleep time on home sleep tests. So there you go. You guys will know when I'm gonna get very consultative and strict, and when I might be actually talking more specifically about my products. You will not be caught off guard. All right, the first topic we want to dive into is managing and retaining staff. Since I've been doing this for so long, I felt like I had so much information, but things change constantly. So I reread a bunch of articles that I've used in the past on things that I try to make sure I implement in my team, and then a ton of more recent stuff. I didn't quote specifically any of them. I just kind of put them in my head for knowledge. We're going to send some follow-up information to everybody who attended today on all of these topics with links to these as well. So if anybody else has any great resources that you like to use in this regard, send them our way. We might be able to even gather those and get them sent out as we send them to everybody. So the 3 main topics I want to deal with and have everybody come up with ideas for are managing and retaining staff. It is not a surprise right now how difficult it is to find staffing in healthcare in particular. So hiring the right team, supporting your team, and then empowering managers are the 3 things that I think are kind of the keys to success. And you'll see a lot of support in that in the articles that we will send you in follow-up. So hiring the right team. I can tell you I have a ton of experience with this. Most of my last 20-year history comes from working in startups, where if you're doing a good job running growth and revenue, which I think I do, you're making a lot of hiring on your team. So I not only have seen companies make a lot of hiring, I've been directly involved in a lot of it. When I mentioned that we launched a revenue cycle management company, I think we ramped up to 60 people on that team in 3 years. So I've been very involved with this, and I would love to hear other people as we're diving in on other things that maybe you've seen. If I don't get them all covered here. So first thing I'm going to say is treat your candidates like customers. We know the job market is very different now than it has been in the past. I've had moments where people are, doing everything they can to get you to hire them. And now there's a little more, kind of like the real estate market, there's a little more, we got to woo people to come work for us, especially if you really want to get the top talent. You want to be very respectful of their time. You want to be very hospitable. If people come into the office, give them a tour of the office, offer them something to drink, make them feel like it's welcome. People get nervous, whether they're very confident and feeling like you have to woo them or not. People are nervous. They're nervous on phone calls. They're nervous when they go in the office. And the way you make them feel is going to make a big difference on when they're considering if they want to join your team. I've shared the quote, people won't remember, it's Maya Angelou, and I'm not going to get it right, but people won't always remember what you said, but they are going to remember how you made them feel. So think about that as you're talking to candidates. Treat them like customers or patients. Really make them feel welcome. One of the things I want to bring up as an example that we recently did with my current company, we use OKRs from the book Measure What Matters, and it's objectives and key results. So you set an objective and then you put some key results in. We have put one of our main goals as a company on building the right team. We feel very, very strongly that we want to get the top 5% of candidates out there in the market. And if you don't make that a specific objective with measurable results, we're not sure that we can achieve that. One of the things that we did, which I thought was really, really interesting that maybe people haven't tried before, is we set some specific results that we wanted to see as we were interviewing candidates. This was a year ago. So we had a rule. I think we wanted to get back to anybody who applied for a job within 48 hours. We put very specifically all of the steps of our interview process on our job posting, so people knew exactly what to expect and what the process would be like. So they also knew the sort of commitment they would be putting into if they went through it. I will tell you, we typically do a 30-minute phone screen just to get a sense of like what the job is like, get a little bit of a sense of the person, and then we do an hour-long official interview. We include team members that the person would be working with in that interview. It allows them to get a sense of what their team will be like. The other thing that I think is really cool about that I can tell you from a sales perspective is you get a really interesting view of the dynamics of a team when you've got team members and a leadership person or a manager on a call. I see it when we do demos all of the time and the whole team is on the call. And I think candidates can see that as well. So I think that's a really cool idea. And quite a few of the articles recommend doing that too. So we also do that at Enzo Data when we're interviewing people. And then the third thing that we do is kind of what we consider a culture fit. When we were doing stuff in person, maybe we'd meet people just for coffee or lunch and bring a couple team members. Now we're doing a lot of calls with maybe another member of the leadership team just to make sure that people fit in. Now, obviously, depending on the role you're hiring for, you might want to tweak that, but we've had a lot of great success with this. What we did as another part of our OKR when we built the objective and the key results, and this I think is really out of the box, we surveyed people that we hired and we surveyed people that we didn't hire. And we asked for feedback on the process, if anything surprised them, if they felt like we treated them professionally, gave us some really cool data on the way that we're approaching things, and we've tweaked some stuff. Using social media, because people these days are really looking for a good culture fit, I think it's an excellent opportunity to put your job postings out on social media, and you can have a little more fun with them. You can put videos together. You can really share the things that the team are doing. We're building redoing our website right now, and we specifically put a page together. It's not out there yet, so don't get too excited and go look for it. We're building it right now. That is designed to attract the best of the very best people to come to our company. And if you start looking around on other companies' websites, like the big companies, especially like Amazon and stuff, you're going to see a ton of that, right? So we're trying to put our personality, our flavor, our mission, our vision, really let people know what you're about. And social media is a great opportunity to do that. Not only are you trying to attract your patients and your referrals, but consider the fact that you might also be trying to find the right candidates out there. So I don't know if anybody has any other ideas on things that they're doing, but please type them in. I see that there's one question. I'll get to that in a second. Employee referral program. Let's assume we're doing a really great job taking care of our team. They're going to know other people that are going to want to make a difference in the healthcare lives of patients. And an employee referral program is an excellent opportunity. I can tell you from talking in particularly to the RPSGTs, I have had an opportunity to get to a couple of shows. They're very proud. You know, everybody tells you about the impact and like stories of, well, this patient did this. And, you know, the one patient that, you know, we stopped and we did titration and we got them on their CPAP, you know, woke up in the morning with tears in their eyes, said it's the first good night's sleep they've had in years. This is really, really powerful stuff. Being in sleep care gives us an opportunity to make an impactful difference in not only the health of the patient, but the everyday lives, if that makes sense. You know, there's a lot of things that in healthcare that are great, but people don't necessarily feel immediate results like we do in sleep. So working with your employees, if you're supporting your existing team and they're loving it, they're also going to be very particular about who else they bring on the team, because nobody wants to bring a slacker in and then they're going to have to pick up what's missing. So really good idea to perhaps put a referral program together for your team. Create compelling job descriptions. As I said, we put a lot of time and effort into our job descriptions, making sure we iron out the process, put your mission and vision in there. It's very important. Sponsored job, this is something that came off of the Indeed website. You have the ability, just like in dating apps, to really highlight the jobs that you have to try to get very specific people that were interested in it. It's kind of like elevating the ad, which is worth it. They show really great results on that. We are in the field of hiring AI engineers. Let me tell you how hard that is. We get really creative with sponsored jobs. We use a website called Workable to post our jobs, and then we're able to put filters on, and then it hits a ton of different sites. If you're not using something like that, that might be a great suggestion. The one that we use again is Workable. You can search posted resumes. It's another thing that they have on Indeed. Maybe you've got some jobs in the office that you really want to carve out for your technicians, your RPSGTs, your CCSHs, but you've got other people that, you know, can take on some of this other stuff. And there's certain characteristics that you're looking for or experience you've had success with. You can go search resumes. I already mentioned bringing in peers to the job interview, consider past applicants, and work with local schools. I'm going to spend a second on this because I think everybody's like, oh yeah, you can go to the job fair and stuff. But my previous role was actually in eye care. I worked with optometrists and ophthalmologists, and I thought it was really interesting. The technicians in the optometry offices and ophthalmology offices, as well as the students in optometry school, the entry rates, or not the entry rates, the applicant rates were dropping. So as a community, they actually put they went on a mission. They hired a marketing firm to really chase after applicants, desired applicant pools. They went into the colleges and they have these really cool videos that they did. They made posters on the science and the tech behind the eye care industry, the impact you can have on patients. Eye care is another one that you can get immediate impact when somebody's not seeing well and then they can see well, and the flexibility of hours. And it was really, really cool. So it wasn't just about the job fairs. They sponsored things at colleges. They put a complete marketing program together to go chase. I know it's a lot, but it does seem like we're really, really struggling to get some of the outstanding RPSGTs that we have now to attract new ones. So think a little bit outside of the box when you're considering going into the schools. And that was the question, is thoughts on increasing sleep technology staffing and how to attract new people to the field. I don't know if anybody else has any answers for Steve on this, but I do think hopefully some of this helps. We do have some examples of some of our labs working with some of the programs at the schools, our PSGT programs, and supporting things with CCSH as well. And then, you know, it allows you to kind of get in as with the students in advance and having success with them actually then coming into work for you. I've seen a lot of job postings too, the last bit on this, unless anybody else has any other suggestions for Steve on how you're having success finding our PSGT staffing. But I've also seen a lot of signing bonuses with people. I'm going to talk a little bit on the next slide about things that I think you can do to support your existing team and maintain them, and that might help as well. But I know signing bonuses have proved for some of the people that we've talked to be worthwhile. Okay, great. All right, let's look on. So supporting your existing team. Obviously, if you hire the right people, that's the first step. Providing onboarding, this might sound simple. I can tell you I'm living this right now. I've got 3 people that I am onboarding. It, you know, kind of double, triples the existing team's time when you're putting this together. But when you put a really good onboarding program together, then you just need to tweak it and do it. But it is really, really important as people come in that you give them the traditional, this is how we do things, as far as like lists of job that they're responsible for. But I also think it's important to talk about just the lay of the land and including that in your onboarding as well. Like, these are the tools that we use. You can't make assumptions that everybody understands the version of Microsoft that you have, or just different things like that. So really making sure people feel like you're excited that they're there and you're going to give them the tools that they succeed early on to dive into their responsibilities. So this speaks a little bit to the question that Steve had about particularly reaching out to our PSGTs and bringing them in. It speaks, I think, to finding the right people and getting your existing team to send referrals in. One of the top things in every article of what people are looking for from, there's a difference between older generations and younger generations, but not on this. And it's showing them advancement opportunities and ongoing training. If that is something that you are providing, make sure you get that in your job posting. Make sure you're offering it to your existing team, because that is going to help you find good people and it's going to help you support your team. The other thing that I think it helps a lot with is if your existing team is killing it and they have dreams of doing new things and spending more time with patients, or you know, they really want to make sure that we get to as many people as possible that need help with sleep. They're going to have a much easier time training new people, knowing about the different opportunities that await for them than if they don't. So it just creates a really exciting culture of people bringing in people, helping you find people, and then retaining them and really tackling everything that you need to do. Another thing that I think is slightly different between younger generation and older generation, and if you haven't sat in on any of the talks about managing millennials, I really would encourage that you do that, because it is different than managing. I have managed people, well, I told you when I was 26, I managed 2 people that were over the age of 60 at the time, which 60 now is very, very young in my opinion. But at my last job, I managed people that were in their upper 60s all the way down to people that were in their 20s. And it is different. People behave differently. I would like to think that I geek out a little bit in the nuances of that, but I sat in a college, an optometry college, actually gave a talk on it, and it was really interesting to sit in the room. I was scribbling all the, oh yeah, I want to make sure I do that, and then there were people that were losing marbles on different expectations of different generations. But it is really, really interesting. Something in particular that younger generations right now care a great deal about: flexible hours, quality of life when they're in the office, like simple things like snacks or negotiating discounts from local restaurants or providing those sorts of benefits. Work-life balance is huge when things are, I think that's, now that COVID has been around, I think if there is an article written and they don't talk about work-life balance as people had their kids home from school and stuff, they probably weren't paying attention. So things that you can provide work-life balance and snack and gym memberships may not cost a ton, but they can have a huge impact in supporting your team as well as attracting new people. The other thing that I'm going to recommend is pay as well as you can for the best people. One of the things that we invested in last year, which has been fantastic for us, is a program called CARTA, and it allows us to see the pay tiers for different roles across the country. We allow people to work remote, so we typically take the highest examples, which is not going to surprise you. It's like California and New York. And then we look on the tiers so you have an idea of if you are offering competitive salary, and it also lets you build advancement and promotions and additional pay for the raises for the team that you have. It is very important to us too, and it is very important to, in particularly younger generations, to think about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And when you put a program like CARTA in, you know, you're just not like, oh, I'll pay this person this and this, and you know, inadvertently or not, paying somebody more. It allows you to put in equal platforms. The one thing that I will say might be hard to keep up is it is a very competitive salary market right now. So you have to be flexible within CARTA as well, but it's a great example of kind of baseline. Empower and entrust your team, create a great work environment. I think that talks about those tangible benefits. Prioritize work-life balance. We discussed that a bit already. Value your employees and check in with them regularly. I'm going to talk a little bit about this when I get on the next slide, when I talk about empowering your managers. And think about how you measure success. This is definitely the Cindy Braden person who wants to speak about experience here. I feel very, very strongly, if you want to have the best team, and this comes from managing so many different types of people, people who live really well off of a checklist, like you have to do this amount during the day, and then when you cross that off, you know, you're good to go home. Typically doesn't help you grow your business and have the impact in the lives of your customers or your patients, depending on who you're serving or selling to, as the people who you empower to make an impact in people's lives. So when you give people the ability to make decisions that they think are in the best interest of the patient and not have to like micromanage everything or go through lists, it can really change the way the business grows. I worked with a very, very smart man once who was chairman of a board that was with a company that I was on. And I remember he said in one of our meetings, you can make a lot of money by just doing the right thing for people. And I think this bullet really speaks to that. If your measure of success is happy, healthy patients, good outcomes, or whatever it is, I mean, revenue is super important, so we'll talk about that later. But if your measure of success is good outcomes and healthy patients, and it's not that you got through these 20 things in a day, I think you'll see the 20 things will happen. And people will be better at doing the stuff they do because they know the measure of success isn't necessarily about the quantity of, the quantity of things done. So I'll just throw that out there. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts or comments on that. I feel very strongly about that. All right, empowering your managers, and then we're going to dive into growth, which is the thing that I feel like is my wheelhouse for sure. I feel very strongly about this as well. Provide clear objectives for them and their team. Watch their workload. One of the things that I can tell you, because I've done upper management, I've done middle management in a startup, you kind of do both for a while, is managers, really good managers, want to try to protect their team. And so they typically will say, oh, I can take that on because I need my team to focus on X, Y, or Z, right? You've laid their objectives out. So any of the extra stuff that comes in, managers might take on, which is good. You want them protecting the team. But don't forget the third bullet here, which often is forgotten about if you don't make an objective, if you don't use OKRs and you put an objective with key result measures in there. They have to have time to nurture and support their team. The culture of a successful workplace, I feel like you can tell when the managers are overworked because it does affect the team. They don't have time to be nurtured and supported. They don't feel like they have clear career paths laid out for them when the managers are overworked. So it is kind of a balancing act. I do have a couple of suggestions on the last slide that can help with that. Sometimes there's just too much to get done in a day. Sometimes fires come up and, you know, everybody's just got to chip in. I get that. But if you do empower your managers to make decisions for your team, empower the teams to make decisions for your patients or your customers or the doctors that refer to you, I think you'll find everything runs a lot smoother. Outsourcing what you can to help, using automation. You know, we in the last, I mentioned Carta that we pulled in, we use Workable, we use JustWorks for benefits, bringing in software that can automate things that somebody would have to physically do, like HR or anyway, I'll talk a little bit about Upwork too, really can make a difference, especially for your managers. There's a lot of stuff that I wear a lot of hats. I'm a single mom, you know, I run this at work, I volunteer at the school. You wear all these, you know, I've got my Enzo hat, I'm a manager at work, I do strategy at work. There are some things that I'm like, man, I'm not sure anybody could do that as good as me. I don't want to let go of it. And then there's some things that I have to do that probably somebody could do better than me, or maybe even at least as good as I do. If you're willing to invest in things to get that sort of a help for your managers, you can really make sure that they thrive in the things that they do better than anybody else, or that nobody else can do. I'm going to give an example of this. I'm going to use my sister-in-law. She doesn't know this, but she got promoted, or she took a new job in a new field, and it's a manager position. She's loving it, but it's a lot to take on. And there are things that get tossed her way that she does not have experience with, and it's terribly overwhelming for her. Her company is fantastic, and I'm sure if she just said, oh, could you do this or that, you know, they would support it. But for her, it's a little rough because she doesn't want them to, like, she doesn't want to see when she first got in there that there's stuff that she doesn't know. So she leans on me a lot for advice on different things. And one of the things that I suggested to her was Upwork. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but there's tons of options with this, but it's the ability to outsource stuff. I've used it twice already since I've been at my new job. We use HubSpot to manage our database of leads and customers. So I could probably be fantastic at it, but it's a lot. And I don't have anybody on my team that really has the time. So I outsourced a HubSpot expert, and it's been a life changer, a game changer for us. They're probably working for me 2 or 3 hours a week at this point. I mentioned this to my sister-in-law, and there was a new program that they got, I think it's Monday, I think they got. She just doesn't know, she just has no experience on it. And she was considering outsourcing it, like I mentioned to her. And what she ended up doing is she just found a consultant that could have done the work in her same field. And she probably should have asked her bosses, because I bet they would have supported her on this, but this is why I'm sharing it with you. Make sure your team feels like you would support them. She ended up hiring the consultant through Upwork herself for 2 hours to just train her on everything she needs. Now she's like over the moon. The 2 hours was all she needed. She did pay for it out of her own pocket just to get her up to speed with the stuff she needs for work. But consider automation, outsourcing on the things that you can to make sure that your managers aren't so overworked that they can't support their team. Oh, okay. So here's my first Enzo Data hat. I'm putting it on now. So keep this in mind. The first product that I mentioned earlier is Enzo Sleep, and it's AI auto scoring. So it provides consistent automation of your sleep scoring. Scores the studies, PSGs and HSTs first, so that your RPSGTs can log in and review it. So what does that do? It frees up their time, right? If they're not having to score from scratch or fixing poor auto scoring. Ours is not. It's really reliable and really good. It frees up time. They can get that ongoing education. They can help lay out things that they want to do in their career advancement. They can help you bring on new people. Maybe they can help you find new team members. It also provides flexible time off. If you have somebody that's scheduled to go on vacation and somebody gets sick, I know that this sometimes grinds sleep labs to a halt. If you have auto scoring that's really good in the office, it's not going to grind you to a halt, right? So it allows for people to be flexible, to feel like they can take that time off, to feel like they can get to more. It also, I see this all the time, overflow scoring falls on managers. And if you have an auto scoring in that does a great job that people can trust and rely on, it doesn't fall on the managers. All right, second big concern. Does anybody else have any thoughts on those? Let me see. Oh, Hope this means I'm doing a great job. Send in other suggestions or ideas. Oh, shoot, I had a question. Oh no, it's on this one. Okay, never mind. Sorry, Esther. This is where we're going to discuss your question. Decreasing test volume. I wasn't sure on the poll exactly what this meant. So I asked as many people as I could find. I asked RPSGTs. I asked 2 RPSGTs. I asked the lab manager, like, what does decreasing test volume mean to you? And the feedback that I got was just COVID, shrinking stuff that's happening in the labs, concern about the RPSGTs, I'm sorry, the PSGs slowing down and HSTs growing, HST devices going out to patients and never coming back in, and the cost of supporting that, no shows in the office, and then just the concept of the fact that sleep is like really well known, but the specifics of sleep care that we provide, maybe not so much. So these are the 3 answers that we got to help you with the concept of decreasing test volume, increasing your referrals, decreasing your no-shows, and leaning into technology. If you are on my team, you would hear me talk about the P's in the mattress. This is a photo from the Hans Christian Andersen book, Princess and a Pea. You have to think, this is why I don't have my Enzo Data hat on, because I'm not selling to you here, because I want to be very, very strict with everybody. There is no, well, my patients are doing this, or these doctors can't expect us to do this, or this guy is being such a pain, it would be fine if this. There is none of that when you are trying to focus on revenue, growth, and volume. You have to think of yourself as the P remover. One of the things that I love about the Princess and the Pea story is it's mattresses, we focus and sleep. You've got to think about how to make things as easy as possible for your audience clientele. We've got tons of different groups represented today, from private sleep labs to health systems to home sleep testing companies that just send devices out. So your audiences are all going to be a little different. Some are referral doctors coming in, some are patients that are actually coming in, some are the doctors, the cardiologists in the hospital that are sending you patients. So whoever your audience is, you have to think about all of the possible P's that could be in their mattress that keep them up at night or keep them from referring patients to you, and you have to pull those P's out. When you have a great relationship with somebody, you want to be so good at and focused on supporting your customers or patients or refers that they, as they're about to talk about another P and they say, you know what's really, you've already pulled that P out before they have an opportunity to realize that it was bothering them, okay? So this is the #1 thing you can do. When I talk to groups, everybody's so proud of their lab and what they do and the difference they make and the way that they provide for the patients, but you really have to think about making things as easy as possible when you're chasing referrals from either patients or from other labs or the doctors in your health system. So one-page documents for the doctors that you're working with or for the patients that they can then put in their lab that really explains it, that makes it as simple as possible. Think about that Princess and the Pea. There should be no reason for anybody to be like, well, that just seems like a hassle. You want them to say, well, this looks like the easiest thing ever. Why would I not do that? That's what you want everybody saying. Why would I not send my patients to them? Or why would I not tell my friends? My life is so much better now that I went and saw and had that sleep test and I use my CPAP. You can do webinars. I will say, people are more used to this more than ever. I probably get invited to way more webinars than I can attend, so keep that in mind, but they are a great way to disperse lots of information to the masses. Double down on your existing relationships. Don't take the refers that are sending you business now for granted. If you're able to free up time for your staff, send them out to work with those people. You know, one of the things that you can't really replace through automation or outsourcing with consultants is really maintaining those relationships that you have with your patients or your refers or within your hospital. So really doubling down on the people that are sending you stuff to make sure that you're able to anticipate any P's that might sit in that mattress. Ask your patients for referrals, get involved in your community. I'm sure you guys are doing this, not only to find people to come work for you, but to get out there and educate patients on sleep. I cannot tell you enough how many people do not understand the importance and the impact that it has on comorbidities that they have too. All right, decreasing no-shows. This is a question that I actually got emailed into me. I can't remember if it was this morning or last night, but uh, we've been having a lot of cancellations after 4 and 5 p.m. We have been told we can't charge people for this. Any ideas on minimizing it? So this is a great question. If anybody else has advice for Esther, type it in on what you're doing for referral or the patients who are doing no-shows. But we've put a couple of blog pieces together that we'll send to you afterwards, and this is kind of a highlight on some of it. I have spent a lot of time with this. We schedule appointments too. They're for demos and different things, but you know, it's important to us to make sure. And then in my entire previous life, I've worked with doctors who work with patients who deal with no-shows. So I know the financial impact this has on your office. And when somebody no-shows, not only are you missing out on their revenue, you don't have somebody else booked that could fill it. So use technology. I'm gonna hit two sides of this coin: technology and people. Use technology to send text and email reminders. Provide efficient or excellent follow-up. What I mean by that is when somebody schedules an appointment, make sure that they don't have any questions. So you have the ability to send them all sorts of educational things via text and email, links to information, reminders on things that they might want to bring. Technology is fantastic for that sort of stuff because it just keeps things top of mind. Esther, for your question on patients that are canceling, particularly at 4 and 5 p.m., I can tell you as a mom, those are very coveted times of the day. So I have a feeling if you could get people to tell you in advance, you could fill it probably pretty quickly. But I can also say that if I had to guess, and I would love other people's thoughts on this, that's when kids get home from school, 3, 4 o'clock. Life gets pretty hectic around 4 or 5 o'clock. So my thought is people might just be forgetting about them because their kids are home or different things are happening at the end of the workday. If my day starts to spiral, I'm really good at stuff in the morning, and by the end of the day, I'm like, ugh, because all of these fires came up at work. If you're using text and email reminders, you may want to consider adjusting when those are going out. The other thing that I would suggest is, again, if you have an opportunity to go to the personal side of this, the technology is great for some things, but having RPSGTs, we have an RPSGT that works with us that does this fantastic job of sharing real life experiences with us and the stories, and you guys could all probably tell the stories that people will give you on why they don't make an appointment or why they got nervous and ended up not coming in for their PSG. You know, I didn't know if I could bring my pillow in. I didn't know what kind of pajamas I was supposed to wear. I didn't know, just these things. And if you can get a night tech or a day tech who's been a night tech, who's sat in on those studies, to have time to reach out to your patients and answer those questions. They're not silly questions. I talk about with my team all of the time, we call it the OR because I also did surgical sales in the past, but the OR in our world is operating reality. If you can't get into the reality, the operating reality, the world and the perspective that your patients or that your customers and referrers are in, you're going to have a really hard time connecting with them. So having the ability to think, gosh, these questions, they probably seem silly to my patient. They're not silly questions. They don't live in the operating reality that we live in. We know a lot about this stuff. They know very little about this stuff. So getting your text to get on the phone, talk to those patients. There's all kinds of research, and I'll see if I can find some of this to send out as well, that says when you're able to use the technology and get on the phone with the patients, the no-show rates drop like drastically. If you can imagine twice a week or once a week eliminating a no-show because you were able to get a technician on the phone with them and alleviate their concerns, it would pay for itself immediately. Create a cancellation no-show policy. A second part of this email, it talks about, we've been told that we can't charge patients for this. I have a feeling that's specific to your area. Or maybe your system that you're in, because I know all of the doctors that I work with have this, so I don't think it's a universal thing. But I know that Esther specifically mentions that she's in an area that was hit hard by Ida. So that probably just feels like something uncomfortable to do. I don't know if anybody else has suggestions on this, but I do typically think that it just reminds people, even if you don't charge them for it, that, you know, if they're not able to come in, it's okay. Things come up, but allow us to fill that time with somebody else. Again, especially that 4 or 5 o'clock time, it's, you know, people are working, and that end of the day time slot is really, really valuable for a lot of people. What is your suggestion for what to say during a conversation with the physician's office to gain the referral? Oh, that's so fantastic. I'm going to try to get to this really quickly, but I would think letting them know the quality of care, the excellent follow-up, and the speed that you're going to turn things around. For me, as thinking about a patient and what I would want my doctors to know, that's I think the best thing. Don't tell them more information than they need to know, right? Again, think about their operating reality. What matters to them? Answer the questions that matter to them. If you don't know what those are, ask them what matters. If I had to guess, a friend of mine whose birthday was yesterday was just talking to me last weekend. We went to a camping show, and her husband was like, "So you do like sleep apnea now?" And I said, "Well, I don't really. I'm adjacent to it." And he was saying that they think she has sleep apnea. He is not sleeping because she stops breathing and he has to wake her up. But then she keeps him up at night because she's snoring. And of course, she's not getting good sleep because she has sleep apnea. And they said, well, her doctor mentioned it to her, but then nothing was ever done, right? So I think in their mind, they just feel like, well, it seems really scary, but must not be that scary because nobody is like chasing me down. It is scary. So to decrease your no-shows, chase these people down. Let them know how important it is. Let them know the impact it's going to make on their life. Let them know the implications it has on their comorbidities, the effects that it has on cardiac patients. I think the more education, the more talking you can do, use that technology for the reminders, and then pick up the phone as well. And then this last thing I want to get into the reimbursement stuff as we're getting down here that I want to talk on is referred patients that have been unresponsive. I've been doing some research on this because I'm like really, really convinced that people do not understand the importance of sleep. And I'm sure everybody on the like nodding, like welcome to our world, Cindy, because I've been here now for 2 years. But as you do the research, I mean, there's upwards of 40% of patients, like my friend, that were told that they should go, that they could have sleep apnea, that then don't know what to do. They don't get followed up with, or they're nervous because they don't know what's going on. Upwards of 40% of patients that have actually been talked to about it and then don't actually follow up. So follow up those patients. Not only is that going to increase your bookings, it's also like if you can get a hold of them and speak to the importance of it, I think it's going to have an impact on your no-shows. Oh, here's another example. Thank you, Christy. So we use the messaging function in Epic to follow up with patients that don't answer the phones. Encourage patients to use their EMR. That's so important. I'm going to show you this. Online access for patients, appointment scheduling, and education. Christy, I love your push them to their EMR. Push them to the apps that I have an iPhone 6, so don't laugh at how old my phone is. But I will tell you, I use this all of the time. So if you're having trouble booking appointments or getting no-shows, teach your patients, especially, I'm not even going to say this, everybody knows how to use these apps at this point, but provide a telemedicine option. I'm not going to say anything more about that because you guys are probably tired of hearing about telemedicine. Online access for patients. As a mother, as somebody who has to go see a doctor, I don't have time. My schedule gets booked during the workday from morning to night with appointments and things I have to do. And then Friday night, when I'm sitting down with my glass of wine to watch a show that I want to watch, I think, oh, my son needs a baseball physical, sports physical for school. And let me tell you how excited I was when I could go and book his appointment. I did it last week. Friday night, 8 o'clock. I was able to access the appointment online. I booked, you guys, I'm not asking you to do this, but the CVS pharmacy that I took him into does appointments on Sunday morning. So we did a 9:30 appointment on Sunday. I knocked it all out that weekend, and it's tremendous. You can also, as Christy mentions, encouraging your patients to use the EMR, you can send education. I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth because I just said, Free up your staff's time to call those patients. You will make an impact. You can't call everybody all of the time for everything. So put education videos together, take advantage of education videos that are already done, get them in the EMR, get them sent out to the patients. You can cover a lot more ground with quality technology that can answer the question that comes up every time. Maybe it's the pillow question. Get that out there. And then meet patients where they are. They're wearing wearables. I had a debate with somebody 3 weeks ago who I was talking about total sleep time, how excited I am that our product is able to get it now. And I don't know if they were wearing an Apple Watch or a, sorry, let me close these up, an Apple Watch or a Fitbit or what they said, oh, well, I know if I was asleep or not because they had their device. And I said, do you? And I laughed because I thought I was all clever because I'm in the sleep world. But here's the thing. Patients think they have all of this data, even if it's not really been cleared to be completely accurate. They've got baseline of stuff. Lean into that. Patients expect, they don't know what we know, right? Go into their operating reality, meet them where they are, consider the expectations that they have, lean into them when you're in those community events and say, hey, if you're getting this data, here's what it means. Here's what we can help you with, right? All right, so, oh, I'm sorry. I'm gonna go fast on this one because it's gonna be a lot of the repeat stuff. Enzo Sleep, our scoring, auto scoring provides consistent automation of sleep scoring. So promote that staff to do patient facing or revenue generating activities. Our scoring does a great job. It may not be perfect in every situation, but you know who's going to be perfect in every situation? Your staff answering questions of your patients. So if you have staff that absolutely loves to score studies, if you're able to use technology, you can have them score more studies. And then if you have staff that would really like to become a sleep navigator or a sleep coach or get on the phones and help with your recalls, you're going to free up time to do that. Confirm those appointments. It's all stuff that we already talked about. The only thing I'll add here for referrals, if you have a bunch of software platforms or devices that you're using because you reach out to a large group of doctors, we do have that viewing platform which pulls everything into one and gives you one report to share, which is nice. All right. Changing reimbursements. I'm going to spend the least amount of time on this because, as lawyers will tell you when they're talking to you and they're not your lawyer, I cannot give specific advice on this. But I know how important getting paid for what you do is. And the other thing that I've always said, I wish everybody that was managed by people or worked at a company was in charge of balancing budgets and revenue one time because it is hard. We are in healthcare. I think the people who are in hospitals or own private labs or taking care of patients, in my opinion, have the hardest business job out there because you're also managers, you're taking care of patients, and whether we like it or not, you do have to run at a profit or nobody has a job, right? I think it's really, really tricky, and changing reimbursements just piles on to that. So 2 things that I think are super important. Really, you need to have expertise in your billing department. Depending again on the environment that you're in, health system, private lab, this may be different, but I can't stress enough how important that is. We'll dive in a little bit. And then do the right thing for the patient and get paid for it. I'll go back to my chairman of the board that said you can make a lot of money by doing the right thing for people. I absolutely think that that's the case. So billing expertise. This is not an area to cut corners. I have a neighbor who moved into our neighborhood into like a 2,000 square foot house, which is a big, beautiful house. And when I was talking to her, she, after her divorce, had to move out of her 15,000 square foot house. Does anybody know what her job was? Because I was very curious. She was a consultant that went into billing companies and found the things that they were doing wrong, and she made a lot. She bought a 15,000 square foot house doing that. It is hard. You want to make sure you're investing in people who know how to do it. You want to make sure that you're freeing up the time for them to keep the education going, to be able to receive the information as things are changing. It is a very painful area to make a mistake, and it is really, really hard to be profitable in healthcare if you're not maximizing the billing expertise and making sure that you are getting paid for what you're doing, that you're not getting penalties, and that you're able to deliver the quality of care that you want. That's all I'm going to say on that. Hopefully everybody's nodding. And the billers are like, very important. All right, 2 other things that you can really do on the patient side, remote patient monitoring. Again, I'm not an expert in this, but there are people that are out there that are. I want to give a shout out to some friends of ours that when I said, hey, I want to talk about all of these new codes and different things that are going on right now to Sleep Better New York City. It's a sleep coaching organization, and they sent me to this website with lots of great information. Sleep Better New York City coaches are actually going to do a webinar for us in May, so check back for that if you're interested in learning more specifics about remote RPM as well as sleep coaching. But the cool thing here is in 2018, CMS realized the importance of monitoring patients. It reduces hospitalization, it enhances care coordination, and it improves patient outcomes. They've added more codes, they've made it easier to document the process, and they've increased reimbursements. It is a perfect world when offering better care to your patients actually allows you to get paid. So I would really recommend that if you haven't looked at remote patient monitoring, that you check into it, or if you have staff in your office that wants to get into sleep coaching, there's all sorts of things that can be done with this. Patient education, sleep educators and CCSH credentialed holders have the opportunity to not only coordinate the testing and review the test results, but also educate patients on sleep hygiene and impact of comorbidities on sleep. I've said that a ton of times. There's a code for it and you can get reimbursed for it, and it's best for the patient, win-win. Total sleep time. Home sleep apnea tests were missing in the calculation, total sleep time. Usually, from the people I talk to, they are using total wearing time, which is fine, but if a patient laid in bed for 4 hours, that's really going to distort the accuracy of how many events happened while they were asleep, right? So there are numerous devices that have the ability to track, not numerous. There are some devices that have the ability to track total sleep time. There's software that has the ability to track total sleep time, and it changes the code that you can use. Talking about billing, for those of you that don't know a ton about billing, G codes, when Medicare first releases a new service, fee for service, they start with a G code. G codes got sunset last year. The CPT codes that are in place for home sleep tests typically reimburse less than G codes, so it was a really interesting year for all of our businesses trying to do right by patients and keeping the lights on and paying their staff and do everything they need. What is interesting is if you look at these HSAT codes, if you can get total sleep time, so actually put sleep time back, the only difference between 95800 and 95801 is sleep time, having that total sleep time. And it is so valuable in the equation that payers may also provide more value in that. So you may want to check on that if you're able to provide total sleep time. Here's my last slide and my last hat. Good news, Enzo Data actually provides total sleep time. So 2 things you can do that we think Enzo Data might be able to help is, again, with that automation of your sleep scoring, really help support your staff. You're not removing their scoring. They still have to log in and review it and edit it and check things, but it's going to cut down on the time they spend. You can promote them to go get out sleep navigation, patient education for the reimbursements. You have the ability to maybe look into those programs, do the right, you're probably doing this stuff for the patients anyway, right? So check into making sure you're doing it in the way that can help you get reimbursed for these great things that you're providing for your patients. And Enzo Sleep is FDA cleared to calculate total sleep time on your home sleep test. So tracking total sleep time is going to provide that confidence. You're now not going off of just total time wearing the device, and payers see value in that as well. So we have an add-on called Enzo TST, which is Enzo Sleep's calculation of total sleep time, and it offers just some additional benefit for you if you're interested in using Enzo Sleep too. All right, how do we do on time? Oh my gosh, I have 1 minute. I did not get a lot of questions and comments. I want to thank Christy, Andrea, Steve, Esther for sending your stuff in. Hopefully this means that I covered a lot of stuff that you guys were looking forward to and had questions about. And whenever I do these, I hope when I leave, I'm like, oh, if I could just take 3 things to maybe go try. None of this is easy. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it, right? But hopefully you've got some takeaways on this. You're going to get a survey if you are interested in learning more about any of our products. And then also, we like to do webinars monthly. So if you have additional ideas on what we could do, let us know that in the survey as well. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.